assignment given to us to the panel by Mr. Shashi Kumar is NEP assessment reforms. And I quickly picked up something from what the NCERT has mentioned, and here goes the slides. So just a glimpse of what assessment is all about during the Vedic period, during the Mughal period, and now what have various committees recommended to us on assessments. So there have been many commissions as well. So you have the Education Commissions and Assessments, you had the Radhakrishna Commission, you had the Mudaliar Commission and the Kothari Commission, which laid great emphasis on the need for revamping students' assessment through examinations for bringing quality and confidence in the system of education. Now, for all of us who think that NEP has been introduced now in our country, here is a glimpse of what the previous NEPs looked like. So we had a NEP which was which was given to us in the year 1968 and then reformed in 1986. We are now looking into NEP 2020. So recommended for a shift in the focus of evaluation from certificate to improvement in learning. The 1986 NEP suggested for elimination of excessive element of change and subjective, de-emphasizing memorization. That is a rote method. Then, introduction of continuous and comprehensive evaluation, which most of our schools are following right now, that is the CCE pattern. Use of grades in places of marks. Our country is a country which is obsessed with marks, and we know why the suicide rates amongst our students are going up when we look at the marks. So probably the grades have a more soothing effect on the students when you have this CCE and the grades concept. Introduction of semester system from secondary stage in a phased manner. So some of the boards, because of the pandemic, have introduced the semester system, but we will have to wait and watch whether it would continue post-COVID as well. Then, the National Curriculum Framework, and what does it talk about assessment? So the National Curriculum Framework, at different points of time, tried to translate significant recommendations of committees, commissions, and policy documents into implementation strategies in the areas of teaching, learning, and assessment for qualitative improvement in entire school education system. So as a school education system, we need to evolve. We need to change to the need of the hours, and that is what most of the policies also have been talking about. So the journey of students' assessment goes a long way, passing through oral testing, written testing, public examinations, internal and external assessments, continuous and comprehensive evaluations, and competency-based assessment. So in this auditorium, we have schools which are affiliated to different boards, but amongst all the boards, there is some pattern or the other that has been placed in this PPT that we follow. It could be oral, written, public examinations, internal and external assessments. So these are some of the existing assessments that are prevailing. Attempt to shift from content-based assessment to competency-based assessments are continued. Now, the new Education Policy 2020, emphasis on transforming assessments from optimizing learning and development of all students with a focus on the following. And what does it focus on? Regular, formative, and competency-based assessment, promoting learning and development of students, focusing on assessment for learning, tests, higher order thinking skills, that is analysis, critical thinking, and conceptual clarity, etc. It also helps the entire schooling system in revising conditional teaching learning processes to optimize learning. Transforming the culture of assessment. So, continuous tracking of learning outcome of each child. That is the most important part as to how we track the learning outcome of the students. Board examination to be more flexible with assessments of essential skills, assessment to focus on core concepts, higher order and foundation skills, all-based softwares to help track progress of students to enable to make optimum career choices, national assessment centers, that is Parak. If you have gone through Parak, it's one of the best, I think, initiatives the central government has taken, will bring greater synergy in board examination conducted by different BEOs, self-assessment with Parak. I think the slides are self-explanatory. He mentions that I'm running out of time, so I'll quickly skip the slides. 360-degree assessment is the need of the hour. Then, with regard to the public examinations, probably you could take photos and read them later on, because the panel will be discussing in detail on all these points. Yeah. So, yesterday we were in a conference and we did have principals from across India coming in. And there was a sister who stood up from Haryana and mentioned that they have already got directives from the Haryana government that they need to move on to the 5+3+3+4 model, wherein they have been asked to conduct examinations at grade 5, grade 8 and grade 12 level only. So like the commissioner mentioned, each state will have its own way of implementing NEP. Okay. Yeah. So support for gifted children, which we seldom don't take into consideration in our schools, that is also mentioned over here. So the road implementation as to how we would be implementing the assessments in our schools. This is all about the road to implementation. Yeah, so that was a very short PPT which was prepared just in the nick of time. And yeah, so will you be introducing the...
Dr. Gayatri Devi, you can please come on the stage for the panel discussion. Dr. Gayatri Devi is going to be the moderator for this discussion. Please, ma'am. Mrs. Sushila Santosh, Director Vishwavidyapeeth, please do come on board. Mr. T.N. Raju, member of the NEP Task Force, please come, sir. Mr. Atul Srivastava, he is the president of the UP Schools Association, please, sir. Professor Ganesh Bhatt, educationist, welcome, sir. Mr. Rajendra, who's heading the Maharashtra Association, please come, sir. Mrs. Manila Cavolo, I hope I got that right. Mrs. Manila Carvalho, Principal of the DPS East, Bangalore. Welcome, ma'am.
A very good afternoon to everybody. Please be seated. So you will have to bear with us because the panel has not met before, neither have we discussed a plan as to how this panel discussion would unfold. So yes, it's an extempore for all of us. So very quickly, the topic given to us is all about assessments. So, is there a need for a reform in the assessment? Is my question to Mr. Raju.
Yes. Say
there is a need for assessment. Before we look at assessment, we need to set standards. I think if you have gone through the policy document, it touches upon 5 unique areas of setting standards for schools in India. Point number 1, curriculum standards. Point number 2, learning standards. Point number 3, teaching standards. Point number 4, evaluation standards. Point number 5, infrastructure standards. Either two, Dr. Gayatri ma'am just now explained to you, most of the literature which was shown on the screen was more onto the assessment of the students. But NEP 2020 talks in detail not only on the student performance assessment, it is the capacity building program of the teachers and assessment of the teachers. It doesn't stop at that stage. It also talks about capacity building program for the institutions, be it is government or private, aided or philanthropic institutions, capacity building programs. Then comes the assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was T.N. Raju, who is a member of the NEP task force. My next question would be to Dr. Ashok Pandey. And the question is, how prepared are our teachers? Because he did mention about assessment for teachers is also very important, unless and until they understand the core essence of what assessment means. Oh, Atul Srivatsav. Okay. So, Mr. Atul Srivatsav, like I mentioned, the panel has not met before, so kindly excuse us with the names. Over to you, Mr. Atul. To talk about accreditation. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, everybody. Well, I'm from Atul Srivatsav from Uttar Pradesh. In 2009, RT Act was formed there. In that act, it was clearly mentioned that to establish new school, you have to complete your compliance about 40 norms. Then only you will get the recognition. And also they have mentioned that prior to that 2009, the school which were established, they have given a time of 3 years to compliance all these 40 norms. And very interesting thing mentioned there that all rules, they especially mention in the RT Act that the school which run and financed by the government will not require to comply this norm. They are exempt from to comply this norms. This was a very interesting point. So what happened? Most of the schools, and the one thing also mentioned there, if the school which were established earlier 2009, if they will not comply, they will force to derecognize and they have to shut down their school. This was very shocking. And after 3 years, what happened? Few schools are not compliant. So they imposed in the act, they mentioned that the school which will not comply, after 3 years, they have to pay 10,000 rupees per day as a penalty. 10,000 rupees per day penalty. Then for the day they will run the school. It was very challenging for the private school. And the government UDICE data from Uttar Pradesh said about 14.5% government school follow these norms. The rest 85%, about 85% government school don't follow these norms. They are running very peacefully, very comfortably. There is no pain, no any queries from there. There no action against their government school. And very surprising thing is only 8.5% private school are able to follow. Only 8.5% to comply with all 40 norms. It is so impractical norms mentioned in that act. This is practically not possible for all the private school as well in the government school. Only few percentage there. Now in this new education policy, government had given an opportunity to reconsider and suggested that their norms should be very practical and it should be realistic. So that, and mainly focus is that there's the learning outcome. They say their land norms may be relaxed, their playground requirement, because in the urban areas it's not practically possible to have such a huge playground. It is so costly, land availability is very tough. So they mentioned the only realistic terms should be there so that the school can run and can deliver the quality education. So they have only focused on the learning outcome. This is a very wonderful thing they have mentioned in this new education policy 2020. They have let's see what the government will form the norms. Thank you.
Yes, wait and watch would be the answer right now. Thank you, sir. Moving on to Mr. Ganesh Bhatt. Most of the schools in our country follow the traditional methods of assessment. Now, under NEP, how do you think school needs to be prepared for assessments from the perspective of a teacher, from the perspective of students as well?
Good afternoon, everybody. This question is very pertinent because the NEP says the curriculum continuity in the schools, and it is not going to touch upon the structure of the schools. Now, if the curriculum continuity to be there from ECCE, Early Childhood Care Education, up to the 12th standard of education, the assessment needs to be continuous, even the curriculum needs to be continuous. Now, what is the recommendation of the NEP to the curriculum? It says 50-50. It is up to the state to make it 80-20, 70-30 or 60-40, whatever you want. But it says curricular areas are 50 and the co-curricular areas are 50. Now, a student who is good in yoga is to be assessed as per the holistic development of the child. That may be indicated in the marks card of a student who comes out of the 10th standard or 12th standard. I just gave an example of yoga. It can be music, it can be physical education, it can be sport, whatever it is. Therefore, a student who is good in mathematics is not only accepted, a student who is good in kabaddi may also be taken into consideration in the school education. Therefore, it is going to be a curriculum, please understand, curriculum consisting of all the component of the child. Nuraru matavihudu lokadu granadali, ಆರಿಸಿಕೋ ನಿನ್ನ ರುಚಿಗೊಪ್ಪುವ ಮತವದರೊಳ್ ಸಾರದೊಡುಗೆಯ ವಿಚಾರದೊಲಿಯಲಿ ಮಾಡೆ ಬೇರೆ ಮತಿ ಬೇರೆ ಮತ ಮಂಕುತಿಮ್ಮ. Hundreds of things are there with the child. We are assessing only a part of it. Now, in order to do this, what does the NEP say? NEP says, do not simply teach the child, make the child to learn. Therefore, learning to learn should become a part of assessment in the institution today. Whether the child has got the method of learning or not forcibly making the child to learn. If it is a plus b whole squared equals a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, is the child capable of telling a squared plus b squared is equal to a plus b whole squared minus 2ab? Whether the child is right or not. This kind of assessment is to be done. Therefore, what does the NEP say? NEP says, do not assess the child at the end. When I say at the end, it will not say even at the end of the week, end of a fortnight, end of a month. It will not say what is the end. End may be within the 40 minutes of learning that is happening with the child. How has the child learned with that 35 minutes of learning? What have you given? Now you have to assess it. How will you assess it? Therefore, the NEP says, let there be a continuity in assessment. If the child is not good in pronouncing a letter in Kannada, like the and the tha, the pa and the pa, the alpa pranas and the mahapranas, it is the responsibility of the teacher to see that the child will go with the expression of the alpa pranas, mahapranas on the day the teacher has taught. It is not assessing at the end of the year, you, the fellow, you do not know how to express yourself. For that is the NEP. One more component that comes in the NEP is, there are special days that are mentioned in the NEP, 10 days of no school bag. Now, how will the private institutions manage? How will the government institutions manage? I have been here right from the morning. There is no government and private distinction as far as the NEP is concerned. Even the regulatory body needs to assess the government and the private institutions on the same scale. Therefore, my request to this group is, you need to make a committee which will represent the SSA. You have to ask them. In the triple SA, you should have a role. one representative from the organization. You should say that we are running the institutions, therefore it is our part. This kind of a request you can make to the government. I do not know whether you should use the word request or whatever it is. You can ask for your representation. Then, classification of the institutions in terms of type A, type B, type C, type D, type E schools. And what should be the kind of assessment to type E? Accreditation or regulation or whatever it is. Just like the 5-star hotels, 3-star hotels and other things. Now, there are good institutions, their fee structure is different. Therefore, when it comes to equity and other things, nobody can challenge because it is there in the vision of the document. We have to give, RTE, somebody was asking, you have to go for the RTE, you cannot leave it. It is a part of it. Why? It is equity. When it comes to equity, representation of the society becomes very important. Therefore, when it comes to assessment of the institution, one step behind it, there is measurement, then the evaluation. For measurement, assessment, evaluation. I stop in 1 minute. Measurement is measuring the weight of the child. Assessment is whether this weight matches with the age of the child or not. Evaluation is whether the child can be healthy with the weight that he has got or not. This is evaluation. Therefore, when I say that there is a school, what is the kind of the education that is given in the school? What is that I need to assess? Therefore, as we are speaking right from the morning about the roadmap, we need to have a very, very structured roadmap for the assessment of the students in the educational institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatt. Very aptly said that assessment needs to be done on a daily basis. We need to understand the learning outcome of the child within the 35 minutes of the classroom and not wait till the half-yearly or the annual examinations. Sir, may we tell you that though we belong to private schools, there are some of the best practices that, we have been practicing. No Bags Day was one initiative that we have taken, and another initiative is Classroom on Wheels. So these initiatives definitely motivate children to come to school with a broad smile on their face, and that is what we need to achieve. Right. Thank you for that input. Going back to Manila ma'am, how ready are we? We have already been implementing CCA, the continuous comprehensive assessments. What else do you think we need to do to ensure that our assessments are almost at par with NEP?
First and foremost, I think we need to train our teachers, because teachers should know what are the parameters for assessment and how they need to do. And me being a part of CBSE has already started a lot of workshops, and many teachers have been trained for this, and more or less teachers are prepared for this. And again, we need to tell the parent community also what are the parameters we are going to assess the children. Because as per NEP, it is 360-degree evaluation where the parent is also a part of the evaluation. The peer group is also a part of the evaluation. So there could be some kind of a bias, kind of a decision by the parent while doing the evaluation back home. So we need to talk to the parent and tell, see, whatever education what we are giving, at the moment what we are doing, we are testing only the memory skills of the memory part of the student. If the child is good at memory, he can put up in the paper, produce in the paper, get good marks, he is considered as the intelligent child. We don't see the other skills that are required for the child. But finally, the aim of education is to prepare the child for life, to develop the skills that the child is having, and prepare him for employability. That is what is the final motive. And this is what we need to pursue. So first and foremost, we need to prepare the teachers with the proper structure of assessment, and guidance needs to be given, rubrics needs to be made, and also our stakeholders needs to be involved in this to tell them this is how we are going to assess the children.
Very rightly said, ma'am. Our stakeholders need to be involved in ensuring that, the 360-degree curve is maintained and everybody gets to know what exactly a school is doing in the assessment aspect. Moving on to Mr. Singh, he's from Maharashtra. Mr. Rajendra Singh, may I ask you as to what are the reforms or changes that the Maharashtra government is bringing in with regard to NEP?
Firstly, your fight with government schools should not be there. They are your friends. Their weakness is your advantage. तो क्यों उनको जागा कर रहे हो कि आप ऐसे हो, आप वैसे हो? हाँ? Their weakness is your advantage. If they were that strong with 48,000 schools, you would not survive only, no? तो उनको नाम रखना बंद करो. They are your friends because there is a black there, white is recognized. So that is the first thing is what I was listening to you. How many of you are trustees and make decisions? अभी आपका your academic year will start. So you will buy books, ERP, computers, a new कोई लगाएगा robotic लाया हूँ, ऐसा robot बनाएंगे, and you think that that is good for your students. How many of you take those decisions here? So all of you who take those decisions and all of you who don't take, I also take that decision. आप बोलोगे कि यार ये ऐसे से इधर कैसे आ गया फाइनेंशियल पे? So I'm coming to the point. So when we take decisions of products, we don't know what the product is. Somebody comes with a marketing agent, sir, this is the product. Then we said, okay, wait. We see one more product, then one more product. And we get knowledge about that product and we start negotiating with them. At stage 1, we were not knowing anything about it. They are the people who come and tell us. That is what exactly you are doing to the government. Why talking about SSSA? जब उनको पता ही नहीं. आप ही जाके बता रहे हो कि आप ऐसा कर सकते हो मुझे, आप मुझे, you can do this to me, you can do that to me. अच्छा, I can do this to you. Why? You've seen the movie Dawn? Yeah? मुझे पता है इस बंदूक में गोली नहीं, आपको पता है इस बंदूक में गोली, लेकिन पुलिस को पता नहीं कि इस बंदूक में गोली नहीं. So you're telling them there is a bullet, you can shoot me with it. First, stop saying that. See, basically, we make money out of schools. हमारा फियर क्या है? रेगुलेशन आएगा, तकलीफ आएगा, फाइनेंशियल ट्रांसपेरेंसी कैसा करेंगे? Find ways. There are so many companies. Do you think that all of them are showing a clear-cut account? Mr. Commissioner is so smart. If you can't run the business, don't come and complain it to me. Really, it was really appreciative about him. He was so straightforward. So, how we realize this is the state of Maharashtra. We did not go and tell them, this is this. We heard out, acha, ye hai, aisa hai? So we got to know how much do they know. Then we got to know that they have a lot of problems to implement national education policy. Because your SSC board, the 10th standard board, the higher secondary board, the SCRT, NCRT, and several other boards are working. What are you going to do about them? What are you going to do with them? And all the staff members working there. कैसा regulatory body बनाएंगे? वो लोग क्या करेंगे? Assessment? What will the state board do? Hundreds of people working there. They don't know further on. हम आप खाली आप ऐसे ही बात करें कि ऐसे होने वाला है, वैसे होने वाला है, भूचाल आने वाला है, भागो. So I'm so sorry. You must be so enthusiastic कि मैं आज आऊंगा ऐसे बात करूंगा. That, yeah. So, point 1 is don't talk much about it, even if you know about it. Let's see what comes, because we are missing one important word. RT was an act. Act. Can't be challenged. This is a policy. It's not an act. Can be challenged and can be implemented. It's a policy as of now. Recommendation to states. And every commissioner, every minister I have met, they have said ki we will recommend it or we will implement it according to my suiting and nature and what is needed into my state. when it comes to triple SA, regulation and governance, if you go to a doctor, will he give you the medicine first or diagnose you first? So how can regulation and governance come without accreditation or assessment? Accreditation is assessment of schools. How will you accredit 48,000 schools which has 3 classrooms, 20 classrooms, 25 classrooms, number of teachers, ground, everything varies. So how will you accredit? Regulation का तो सवाल ही मतलब question is not arising. When 48,000, leave your schools aside, when 48,000 schools are not equal, how will you regulate and govern them? They are into big trouble than you are. Relax. Today, go home, relax. Tell your wife and children it's all okay. Sab theek hai. So once you relax, you will also try to understand and grasp what can be our approach towards it when something comes, A comes, B comes, C comes, because you will have to find their weakness and what you are looking at is yours. So that is my say. Further on accreditation, if you have any questions, I'll take them. Thank you.
Sure. It was very direct and nice, and I'm sure those who were into a small slumber woke up after listening to you. सच तो ये है कि चिंता चिता समान है, so चिंता नहीं करने का. Let's all believe that all is well and all is good under NEP, and continue to look at the positive side of education and imparting quality education to our children. At the end of the day, that is what is most important. Now I will move on to Mrs. Sushila, and just wanted to understand, how are parents ready with NEP? Do they know that there is something called as a national education policy? Do they understand its logic, its concept? Any parent has come and spoken to you with regard to this?
Yes, we run all 3 boards, CBSE, ICSE and Cambridge. Now when parents come for admission, they come and ask, you're going to do NEP or you're going to still follow ICSE? So there are some set of parents who do not understand this completely, that it's just a policy or a framework. It doesn't have anything relating to any curriculum. At the same time, there are some parents who are asking, are you ready to implement NEP also? This is most of the times, even today morning, there were parents, how are you ready? Can you show us some evidences? Because 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, this become now the mantra which the parents have by-hearted without knowing what, how it is. And the second question what they have is, what is the entry level age for the pre-primary? Because parents are not ready to accommodate children till 3.5 years at their home, because of the lifestyle what they have. They want us to take children at an early age also. Yes, NEP says that is 4 years when they come to nursery, but will you have pre-nursery like how it was in the preschools earlier, wherein along with daycare, will you allow our children to be there? So more or less, that is around 25% of parents are conversant about the word NEP, but 75% are still ignorant. As ma'am said, if we have to speak about assessment, if we have to speak about implementation, lot of orientation and the sessions are needed both for teachers and parents. Most of our teachers also have still dilemma. Like, how are we going to? Is it going to become a burden for me because NEP speaks so many things, and how I'm going to do? But as a trial, we had followed this 360-degree report cards, which was very successful for us, wherein which we took every aspect of the child, and in the half-yearly we gave the report card, taking the parent perspective also. We did a session for the parents, and it turned out to be very beautiful. The parents could give very genuine feedback, peer feedback, and the student feedback. We did the report cards based on NEP. I felt, yes, it's needed.
So yes, by the time NEP is literally implemented, I think all the stakeholders, including the parents, need to understand, and we need to go hand in hand to ensure that the aim, the objective, the goal is to see what can be the best learning outcome in the students. Any final take on this topic, sir? Yeah, maybe 30 seconds to each of you. so that you could speak from your perspective?
In fact, lot of suggestions that have come under NEP are good for the school, for the children. I don't know from the management point of view, but for the children, they have done a lot of things. And if we do it, in a systematic manner with proper focus on that, I think it will definitely do a lot of best to the students.
The bilingual, that will be the challenge which as per NEP, which may not be practically possible because we have multilinguistic children and ours is a diverse country, and that alone might be a challenge. Being in Karnataka, if we have to use even bilingual, there are children from Andhra and other parts of the country. If we tell them second language compulsory Kannada, what happens when the parents get transferred after 1 or 2 years? I think that alone need to be considered, but otherwise from the students' perspective, yes, lot of benefits from the new education policy.
If the organizers can permit me to speak for next 2 minutes, I would be thankful to you to bring in a little more clarity on understanding of the standards. Let me tickle you with 1 or 2 questions. Have you ever asked your students, what do they want to learn from the teachers, be it is social science or mathematics or English? We have not tried to understand the needs of our learners, let alone the capabilities. When we say standards, generally we look at finished products. How many units can be produced in a day with the available physical infrastructure or human resources or technology resources, etc. So it works there in industry sector and manufacturing sector. In human resources, it's difficult to bring in, but there are many successful stories within the country, outside the country. What do you mean by setting standards? Is there a notion, is there a concept on which we can establish our perception or our school system, etc.? Here is a great opportunity through NEP to define and redefine our educational practices through our curriculum or through our teaching. Say, when it comes to setting standards for the first standard child, let us say, which child gets into formal system, what is the capacity of the child? How much can a child learn? And what will be the learning outcomes? Maybe at the end of each lesson, or at the end of first term, or end of the term end, learning outcomes. So there, we need to look at defining our concepts, our skills, tenets, principles, experimentations, whole lot of things, we need to, as a country as a whole, an opportunity to prove to the rest of the world that India is a country with so much of human resources which can compete with the rest of the world. We are supplying human resources, but we are not showcasing our best practices. One question to you, and also to the whole system of education. How many words can you read per minute? Those of you who got the answer, please raise your hand. I repeat the question. How many words can you read per minute with adequate comprehension? See, setting of standards is as simple as that. We need to define what should be the active vocabulary of first standard child. What should be the ability of problem solving of 10th grade child? We need to go into specifics. Look towards maximization of learning and not minimum levels of learning. Gone are the days. How much a child can learn with the help of the teacher facilitation or without the facilitation. Now the trend is coming up that there are many children who are capable of learning your texts, maths, science, English themselves. On the very first day of reopening, many children come, particularly self-financing institutions, totally ready to take your examination on the very first day. They are not gifted children, but they have some kind of exposure, inquisitiveness to explore oneself with the help of e-learning facilities, whatever they have. So I'll answer the question. A 10th standard child, a poor reader, can read less than 50 words per minute. An average reader can read about 150 words per minute. A good reader, 10th standard child, can read around 300 words per minute. A very good reader can read around 400 to 450 words per minute. An excellent reader can read around 600 words per minute. And a genius can read more than 1000 per minute. That is the rate of perception, comprehension, learning ability of our learners. And we need to set standards, defining from each class what concepts we are teaching in social science or English or languages or mathematics, etc. And when once we set standards for learning, we need to set standards for teachers also. How much do they know and how much do they want to know? We need to fill the gap, help them as soon as possible to realize our national goals, our state goals, our stakeholders' expectations. So we set standards for the institutions. What should be the end product? Gone are the days, to mug up topics and get 100 out of 100. And if you retest it, many of them fail miserably after the examination. So it should be learner outcome based, either teaching or curriculum or learning for that matter. Okay. So when we look at it, for example, one simple, if it is not out of the context, for first standard, in one of the schools in USA, they give the learning outcome period by period. Each duration of each period is only 20 minutes at the elementary level in USA. They give the learning outcome for 1 month in advance. It is available on the websites. Okay, parents can look into it. There is so much of transparency, so much of objectivity, be it is government schools or private schools, everything learning outcome based. It is so specific for the teacher, for the school, and to the parents and to the students. Everybody, gets clarity on. So we need to look at it. And another point I would like to share out of concern, as self-financing institutions, please don't ever compete or think of challenging, as our friend from Maharashtra very beautifully put it across. There the goals are different. They are answerable to the general public. Government and politicians and bureaucrats, etc. like. And for you, what are your strengths? Build upon your strengths as a self-financing institution. Okay, maybe you can compare among yourself, not with the government. If all the government schools, start picking up standards, how will you get your admissions? Yeah, you think practically. If they start in every aspect, they are trying to do on par with you or better than you in certain ways. Okay, if the whole rush admissions, is shifted to government schools, what will you do? So you need to substantiate, showcase your strength, and be successful and be smart in the field. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Only I will take 2 minutes to conclude. तो उसमें वो भी अभी एक आइडिया आया है, जैसे कि हमारे कोलीग राजेंद्र जी ने महाराष्ट्र से बताया है, तो एक माइंड में आया कि ये अप्रोच हम जाके अपने यूपी में यूज़ करेंगे कि जैसा कि हम उसको ये नहीं बोलेंगे कि भाई हमारा 40 नॉर्म से हमें पूरा करना, आप भी करो पूरा। मैं उससे बोलूँगा हम लोग तराजू में बैठे हैं, जितना अगर हमें ज़्यादा वेट रखोगे तो हम नीचे चलाएंगे, तुम भी उठ जाओगे, तो हम तराजू में कुछ कम रखो तो हम लोग दोनों बैलेंस रहेंगे। नंबर 1 पॉइंट। दूसरा पॉइंट, जैसे उसमें हमारा एसएसए में कहा है कि टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज़ करेंगे, तो सपोज फायर सेफ्टी का सर्टिफिकेट लेना है, बोले सर्टिफिकेट आप तुम भी नहीं लो हम भी ले लेंगे, आप हम लोग फायर के इक्विपमेंट लगा के आप उसका वीडियो बना के अपलोड कर देंगे, हम उसको और अंडरटेकिंग दे देंगे, वी आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर फायर सेफ्टी। ठीक है, उसी तरह आप भी करो, आप भी फायर सेफ्टी के इक्विपमेंट खरीद के स्कूलों में लगा दो, दे विल गेट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू मेक मनी आउट ऑफ बाइंग दिस फायर इक्विपमेंट ऑफ 55,000 गवर्नमेंट स्कूल इन यूपी। When they see यार हमारा प्रॉफिट इतना, अगर हम स्कूलों में 55,000 गवर्नमेंट स्कूलों में इतने फायर इक्विपमेंट लेंगे तो इतने 1,000 करोड़ का हो जाएगा, तो हमारा इतना बनेगा, तो ही विल इजली, ठीक है इतना पैसा बना, हम एग्री करेंगे कि आप भी फायर इक्विपमेंट लगा के वीडियो अपलोड कर दो टेक्नोलॉजी में और अपना अंडरटेकिंग दे दो। स्कूल भी वैसे भी रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, हम प्राइवेट स्कूल के हम लोगों को अंडरटेकिंग रिस्पॉन्सिबल है फायर के लिए, एक अंडरटेकिंग दे देंगे, वीडियो बना के दे देंगे। तो आई रियली अप्रिशिएट, और काफी लर्निंग हुई राजेंद्र जी के साथ कि उनकी जो स्ट्रेटेजी है दैट हमारा एसोसिएशन जो यूपी का है दैट वी फॉलो इन उत्तर प्रदेश। थैंक यू राजेंद्र जी, थैंक यू।
In elementary education, you need to have the generic teachers who know more than 3 languages. From the preparatory stage, you need to have content-based teachers. From standard 6, you need to have teachers who have the vocational education knowledge and who will be able to develop the vocational awareness. From standard 9, 10, 11 and 12, you need to have the multidisciplinary approach that will be taken on to the higher education. The plus 2 level of education is not called the pre-university education. It is the 11th and the 12th standard of education. Therefore, the 12 years of schooling is being put into 15 years of schooling by the NEP. Therefore, it is the state's responsibility to take care of the Anganwadis, Balawadis, their infrastructure, their content, and then the teachers who are recruited over there. This problem will not come in the private management because you have got the pre-nursery school, LKG, UKG, standard 1, standard 2, it goes. One more experiment that you can do with reference to NEP from the private management is think of building beautiful school complexes. Because school complex is a new idea in the national education policy, not that it is totally new. 1964-66 Kothari Commission has already implemented it. But the rejuvenation is done, therefore you have to think of a school complex. With the multidisciplinary approach, it is going to be a big challenge in the 9th, 10th and 11th, 12th standards because you can have 4 core subjects, additional 2 subjects every semester. That means 9th standard 2, 10th standard 2, total 8 semesters. You need to think of 16 different subjects. These subjects can be continued if you want, or each semester may have separate subjects. For this is what is the model that is going to be prescribed in the curriculum by the NEP. Thank you.
I think NEP gives us as an opportunity for the first time to work together for the government and private sector to come together. We have started accreditation in the state of Maharashtra, so we have understood that we can't give marks or assess infrastructure because infrastructure varies. Please correct me, sir, if I am. In the government also, in the private also, infrastructure varies, so we can't accredit infrastructure. Salaries and according to that, teachers also vary. So we, in the first phase of accreditation, have just focused on learning outcome. And this is a mock accreditation where learning outcome will be gauged and recommendations will be given to the private and government schools of what they can do to get it better, to do it in a better way. Now, if you go for accreditation and 48,000 schools, with due respect, sir cannot accredit his own schools because he has limitation of staff. So, where does the staff come from for accreditation? Is genius principals, sincere principals from private schools, coordinators, teachers. When they group up together, only then accreditation will come in place. Otherwise, accreditation is not going to happen. If it happens, it will be challenged further on. Shashi. So, accreditation, if comes in place practically, it has to be come in a place together with private school teachers and principals, diet, and the principals and teachers of the government school working together. Accreditation can happen, and only quality then can come up because you are together now. They will have some strengths, you will have more strengths, but these strengths will work together to improve the quality of school in the state of Karnataka. So your approach should be together instead of biased, instead of fighting, instead of, standing against it. A together approach is more important when it comes to SSSA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. We will quickly move on to the House. In case you have any questions, you can address it to the panelist here. Any questions from the House, please?
Chai kab milega? When will we get tea?
Now, I'm sure all of us have the 5 W's question. What, when, where, how. Yes, ma'am. Here.
See, before going for questions, like I had one experience, and about that experience, and I ask you a question. Last week, one of my friend NGO, she wanted to distribute books for government school students. I identified 7 students, and those students, they all came up with the parents, and 6 students, they rejected books. They said they want only mobiles. And only 1 student, they took 50 books, and they said it will be kept in the showcase. It will not be used. So when the condition of government school students are like this, see, I just want to know how the NEP be implemented for the private school students, because they are having a lot of sources. Okay.
Madam, is that a question or is it a commentary? I'm not clear.
No, it's a question.
And to whom is the question?
So whoever it is, NEP.
So you have to identify. In the panel, is there a specific question?
No,
that you
because
want
it's
to
not, because I just wanted to know, because that government school students are not interested in going through the books, because they have not much resources compared to the private school students. So what will be the assessment pattern for the students of private school if the same thing continues, that they are not interested in learning through books?
Mr. Raju or Mr. Bhatt, would you want to
Anyone can answer.
answer?
No, I just see government school students, they rejected the books. When we wanted to distribute the books, they said they want only mobiles, they do not want books. Only 1 student took the books, and he said yes. And they do not have, they do not have sources like private school students. They demanded for mobiles. So what about the assessment pattern for the private school students if the condition of government school students are like that? Because they are not interested, see, now the students are not interested in learning through books and going through books.
Ranglakshmi madam, it has to be very crisp. What is the question? It's
Question
still
is
not
that, see, I just wanted to know what will be the assessment pattern
I have
for the
understood.
students as per NEP.
I have understood your question.
Yes.
The students who are there in the government schools, if they are not ready to take the books home and then read, what will the private school students, how do you assess? That is not our problem. The thing is, the school prescribes a curriculum, and the NEP says the load of the child is going to be reduced. We used to have 17, 18 chapters in each subject. Now they say we are going to have about 6 to 7. Now how this 6 to 7 will be chosen? In a circular fashion, in a spiral way. That means one subject will lead on to the other topic like that, and totally when it comes to 12th standard, a student will study all. Therefore, when you say that the books are not taken home, it becomes the stakeholders' responsibility, the parent also. Because the school runs with the teachers, the parents, the head of the institution, officers, everybody. And even in the private school, I have seen, you have got so many books, all children will not read all the books. You please think of us only, how many books are written in each language in India, and how many books have we gone through? Therefore, this is not a problem. But it is the school's responsibility to see that the minimum levels of learning was attained before 1986. Now we are going for expected learning outcomes of a higher standard.
Yeah. So my question is to Mr. Raju. Uh, Generally, we have a assessment report which says percentage of marks, 60%, 80%, 90%. Suppose if 4 different students have got same percentage of marks, 90, what do we understand? Are the talent of all the students same? Or if a child has got 60%, can we say that this child is lower to that child? So this is the present scenario. But after NEP, now the assessment is based on the skill of the child. If a child may have different skills, so how the assessment report is going to be with respect to this NEP?
NEP, yeah. Thank you,
Suppose
sir.
if a child has got 90% marks,
Yeah.
so what are the skills that the child has? So will there be any descriptive, will there be any comprehensive
Yeah.
assessment card, so that if I read, then I will be able to understand, yes, this child knows, this is a 90% child, but he has different talents. This is also 90% child, but his talents are different from this child. So like that it should be, whether it be a very comprehensive report.
Yes, sir, got it. Got your question, thank you. Another very important challenging issue for implementation of NEP 2020. There is a concept called holistic assessment. And your progress card is going to include all the qualitative assessment aspects. It's inclusive of curricular and co-curricular aspects, as Dr. Bhatt mentioned already. You know, hitherto we used to focus only on the curricular aspects. Now we are going to focus on co-curricular aspects. It is going to be competency-based assessment, okay, which takes care of, the assessment is taken care of while teaching itself. Earlier we had CCE, continuous comprehensive evaluation. Most of it is going to be continued with the same, but the focus is on qualitative assessment and not the quantitative assessment what you mentioned. Like 60% and 90%. How much child has learned? Supposing a child has got 60%, if he or she wants to score 90%, what is the roadmark? What is the guideline? Okay, so supposing somebody has got B grade, someone has got C grade, somebody got B plus or A plus. For each one of them, there is a fixed criteria. Someone who gets, let us say, B, there are certain incomplete answers. Okay, incomplete sentences, incoherent, illogical. Okay, so that kind of criteria will be there. To get, let us say, 95 plus, you refer to A or A plus criteria, whatever you have. One who gets A plus can be compared between B and A plus. He got it because he has written completely correct answer. Okay, there are no incomplete negative aspects also there, both positive and negative. Coming to Madam's answer, if NEP is properly implemented in about 8 years from now, there would be a situation where there is no need for the child to carry any textbooks to the school at all. It's going to be totally a different scenario. All the teachers and the managements, need to think in terms of equipping yourself, providing instruction or teaching in your schools without textbooks. How is it going to happen? It's already happening in the West. Except mathematics and reading comprehension in US, no other textbooks children are supposed to carry to the school, throughout the school. But these books are available in e-form. Those parents who are interested can download it, or if they would like to buy a hard copy, which is available, private publishers, government doesn't print textbooks. Think of the scenario, which is going to be totally different from what we are doing now. So, ma'am, please be prepared to teach whatever the subject you are teaching without textbooks in the class. It will be more of workbooks, learning outcome based. Thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Shashi Kumar and all the friends, who joined together, all India level, who have come together. It's a good initiative. Please, I have a suggestion. If at all we want to contribute to the country and to the states, please ask respective state governments to prepare curriculum carefully. We have lot of deficiencies in our curriculum framework.
Excuse me, sir. I don't agree with you, sir, because in this pandemic, we all have given online classes. Not only as a management, as a teacher, I have observed in the classroom, if there are no textbooks, if we use the technology, 60% of the students, they're gone already. Their learning level has come down. The students, those who had been scoring more than 90%, they have come down to 60-50. This e-learning is really, it is not good for our society as far as I have observed in my own school.
No, think beyond 2030, that's what I meant. I hope you got my point. Think beyond 2030, where the scenario would be different.
This technology has really completely destroyed the students, sir, and we have the complaint from the parents. Since the students were using mobiles, they have been diverted. Even the students from 6th grade and 7th grade, they have been diverted.
Okay,
Okay, just one quick question, but which is in two parts, which will also relate to the previous question. So number one is NEP also talks about something called SQAF, School Quality Assessment and Accreditation Framework, and that certainly all states will have to prepare, but for central government administered schools, CBSE is preparing, and as much I know, a draft is already ready. So SQAF, on that my question is...
Please come to the question.
On that my question is there some development in Karnataka at a state level to develop this framework? Second part of the question is, NEP also suggests about key stage assessment at grade 3, 5 and 8 to work as a diagnostic to improve children learning. My question and concern here is, in the traditional model we had exams, then we tried to shift to CCE pattern, continuous comprehensive evaluation. Now there is a key stage assessment. How are these three different? And our observation has been, the more we have tried to do better, things have gone worse. So how it will improve things? That's the question.
and this question is to Mr. Raju.
To whoever would like to attempt.
The Samagra Shikshana Abhiyana, SSA, is working on this. How to make a proper assessment for the children who have got the learning gap during the pandemic, and also how to ensure that a child who is supposed to study at standard 3 coming from the standard 2, whether he has got the minimum basic requirements or not. For that, a kind of a tool is being prepared by the SSA, and it is going to be experimented in the month of June. There was a discussion on this, whether this kind of knowing whether the child has learned properly or not to be done for how many months after the school started. That is from June, July, August, shall I go up to November, and then start teaching the 4th standard or 3rd standard, the actual grade from November onwards. The decision that was taken, as I know, is the child will be assessed for its previous learning. Along with that, the actual grade learning will also be started. For this, an extra time is going to be allocated by the school. How is that they are going to make? Is it 30 minutes in the beginning of the school or 30 minutes later in the school? All these things they are going to work on. Now, even the private management institutions, as we are interested in the quality education, whenever you recruit the teacher, you need to make it very clear to the teacher that my working hour of the institution, when I say it is from 10 to 4, you need to take it as 9 to 5. This kind of a thing has to happen in the private institution. Said that the teachers will be able to work for at least 1 hour in order to see that the child will be taken on to the next, whatever the learning that is there. For if this is not done, we will never be able to meet the learning lag. This has to be done on a day-to-day basis. The other question that you had asked, I'm not able to get it immediately.
Square.
For this, every school need to think of a kind of an assessment for the child as well as the teacher. For something like, self-appraisal that is done for the teacher. These components that you are going to do should be minimum in number. You should not make it very lengthy. 30 different components, rubrics is very long. Make 5 rubrics, 6 rubrics, and then find out whether the teacher is meeting those needs or not. Whether the child has attained it or not. Well, for example, reading, we have got in Karnataka what are called Adarsha schools, which are merit institutions, where the admission is made from the 6th standard for the English medium in the state of Karnataka. English medium schools started by the state for the meritorious student. When I visited those institutions, the students were not able to read the book properly, although they were meritorious. Then, we had one principal secretary, Sri Vijay Bhaskar, with whom we had a discussion, and then we said, why not you give 15 minutes of reading of a textbook for the child every day? Now you can practice this. A social studies textbook, a child should read. An English textbook, child should read. Mathematics textbook, child should read. Children do not know how to read the text. How will they understand a problem in mathematics? Therefore, all these things will come as a part of the curriculum planning in the institution. This has to be done. But that is your school assessment or whatever it is.
Sir, I have one question, sir.
So,
Ma'am, one question.
yeah, this will be the last question that we'll be taking. Louder, please. Last question.
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, according to NEP, there is a choice the students can opt the subjects from class 8, 9th and 10th. Suppose in case one student find difficulty after choosing one of the subject in class 8th and 9th, and he want to shift to the other subjects, will NEP set that route map that he can further go on to the higher studies based upon the subjects again?
That provision is already there, sir. It is there.
Ma'am, and in the higher classes, will he able to cope up the basics, what is missed in the grade 8th or grade 9th and 10th? Suppose a student has chosen science and humanities in 8th and 9th and 10th, and he has to shift to the commerce after 10th standard. So will he be able to cope up the basics of?
No, but I think the question is
Flexibility
yeah.
in the curriculum andre ನಾವು ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಾರ್ದು. ಮನಸ್ ಬಂದಂಗೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಯಾವ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಏನ್ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ತಗೊಳ್ಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ ಅಲ್ಲ. The flexibility does not mean that a student can take whatever he wants throughout the schooling system or the college system. For example, in the college, we have got 2 core subjects, physics and mathematics. Student should read physics and mathematics for 3 years. He cannot say that I will study physics, mathematics now and then I will go to physics, chemistry, then I will go to physics, psychology. For that, there is what is called open elective system. For similarly, even in the school education, I told you about 2 subjects which can be chosen. For those 2 subjects are optional, where he can study this time and leave if he is not interested, go to the next. But the 4 core subjects that he takes up in the 9th should be continued with it. He cannot change.
So,
He cannot change.
Yes, sir. In worst
So this
case-
is not a
So I
conversation.
think with this we'll stop.
Question
with the-
time is closed. Sir, please, no.
One question. Sir, we are discussing in the NEP, we talk about the infrastructure that the schools should have, the quality and the multi-skills that children should develop. But what about the teachers who are they qualified enough to teach these multi-skills? What is the program for the teachers, and if they are available, where they are available?
If possible, I will try to club both of these together, sir. I'm Dr. Supreet. Probably the last one, what you were talking about, if the student has taken up only with respect to that of science or mathematics or physics, that need cannot be changed and he will have to read the same thing for 3 years. I think that is not the scenario now. In the degree section, that is in the higher education, the NEP has already been implemented. I'm also into the University Sector Regulation Committee also. Now the student can opt multidisciplinary in the degree. The first year happens to be the diploma, and the second year happens to be the, first with the certificate, diploma, and the degree level, sir. And one more thing is, even at the +1 and +2 level, student who is interested with physics and student who is interested in business studies can be combined together as per the new education, this national education policy. And apart from that, day before yesterday, the UGC chairman has very clearly lamented. One of my friend who was asking the question now, I wanted to in fact ask you, because running short of time, I didn't want to talk about that. Many educators are here. Today we are talking about teachers and lack of teachers. We do have online degrees from 5th of March, day before yesterday. Anybody can Google it, or you have it in YouTube. The chairman says, yes, online degrees are much valid. So tomorrow, probably the teachers whom we are going to appoint, how is that we need to assess the teachers first with respect to that of their B.Ed curriculum. All those things, I think the task force of this, any state government or the central government also needs to take, they should be having a little barrier out of it. And there is a very big threat. In the morning session, one of my good friends from Mangalore or something, he was talking about the NIOUs. Next, the 9th and 10th, 11th and 12th standard, the NIOUs, maybe the volume is very less or whatever it is. Tomorrow, for the regular institutions, that is also a partial threat, where, when online degrees are approved by the UGC, the same way these kind of online activities might start at a very large scale. People automatically, start getting attracted to such kind of courses rather than regular options. When online degrees are given in this way, better, I think the students will never opt either for my institution or your institution or any other institutions. When online degrees are allowed, people definitely go for University of Texas or any other. Sitting here in the corner of Bangalore, they can have any degrees across the globe. So that is also, the way of assessment that any regular institutions will also have to take care of it.
Yes.
My question is, your assessment towards, especially Raju sir, the assessment of the teachers when online degrees are going to come out, and yes, that is the one, which will be accepted. Will it be accepted by, because now there was one rule, very recently, Karnataka State Open University, they had banned it. Now again it is open. Now that is the only university which offers open, the online or the open university degrees. Now when UGC says this, how is that you are going to assess teachers, and what is the next activity when it comes to the respect of students to take up?
I think one of you can answer, because both of you in NEP thing, very crispy.
Yeah, very short. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. I have two answers. Number one, you want teachers, you appoint them, train them, make them work to your needs. That's the first thing. There is no other alternative shortcut method. Number two, in the larger context, online degrees or offline degrees or whatever you get it, there should be a recruitment based on the performance of the teacher. A science teacher, a maths teacher, a language teacher, he or she is with the needed core competencies.
No, that is what, sir. What are the parameters?
Let me. Core competencies. In most of the subjects, there are about...
Are there any parameters? That is what I wanted to ask.
20 core competencies for school teachers, right? If you are well versed with those 20 core competencies, you look for, supposing some of the teachers have got, say, 10 or 12 or 15 core competencies, you can appoint them and train them with the remaining core competencies. Okay, that is what you can think of. But in the long run, the courses, what they are going to receive, etc., it is totally messed up. Okay, it's only the degree which matters. You have to fulfill the requirements of the board or the government or whatever the authority asks you to, fulfill it, and you need to customize them.
It has to be very carefully taken.
That's all, right? Thank you.
So thank you, esteemed panelists. At the end of the panel discussion, there still lingers a big question mark, because it takes almost about the next 8 years for the NEP to be implemented to its optimum in India. So let's wait and watch for that. But before we wind up, may I request everybody to give all the panelists a big round of applause. Thank you.